Hey everybody, it's Christian Buckley doing another MVP Buzz Chat, and I'm talking today with Johan. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, morning, good evening, wherever you are on this planet.
Post lunch for me, so feeling good. But hey, so Johan, for folks that don't know who are you, where are you, and what do you do?
Okay, well, I am Johan Smarius. A bit of a strange name, but that's also because that I am Dutch, so I live in the Netherlands, and I'm not that young anymore. I'm 53 years old, and I have been in the IT industry for quite some time, almost 30 years now. And the better part of it is that I've always been a developer, and even most of that time, I've been a .NET developer because I started working with .NET since the beta versions of .NET 1.0. And if you want to know, that is about 2001. So
Yep.
you can count the period that I've been involved in .NET projects.
Well, it's also good to see people of a certain age. So I'm a little bit older than you, but yeah, I always often remark that I've known some other MVPs that like I knew they were young, but I never really thought about their ages. It's like, but I got my first MVP when I was 41, and some of these that have been MVPs for years longer, they're like, oh yeah, and I'm now 38. I'm like, what the? Were you like 12 when you got your MVP? Like,
Yeah.
what is? Don't you have to be 18?
Yeah.
But yeah, but it's great, and there have been a couple even really old people. I'm saying that with love out there that have earned their MVP. It's like it's not a respecter. It's not an age thing.
No,
It really is a community giving back to the community. But
definitely.
congrats. So I know you've been in it for a couple years now. What was your origin story? Like, how did you hear about the program, know about it, get started?
Well, the funny thing is, I heard about the program years ago, and I thought, well, okay, it would be a great thing to eventually become an MVP. But then things changed in my career, and I lost the track of it. But I always kept doing things for the community.
Mhm.
And a few years ago, I was given a talk at a local conference, and a colleague or a former colleague approached me and said, well, how much community work do you do? Because I do have the impression that you give more talks than I do. And so I said, Sander, okay, I'll give you an overview of all the things that I do. And
Mhm.
he looked through it and he said, well, you know what? I'm going to nominate you because you do so much things for the community. I'm going to nominate you. And that's the beauty of it. Uh, I have never strived to become an MVP, but I simply became one by simply doing the things that I love, simply providing some knowledge, some experience to the community, and doing that with love.
Yeah. Well, it was we were talking about before we started recording about how I mean, there's just I've got a lot of people that are kind of on my mental list, like should be MVPs, and some of them are like years and years. I could even say now decades running user groups and regional events and speaking at those and occasionally speaking at other events that are put on by their companies or other partner companies regionally. Like they're doing a bunch of things, but they don't catalog all of that. And I love seeing when I come across somebody that is like new to me and I go look at their blog, I look at their website, and they've got outlined like here's where you can find me speaking, here's where I was. Session Eyes is great at doing
Yep.
that, looking through the Session Eyes links there. But it's one of those things where I remember I struggled with capturing the things I was doing that like you, I was doing stuff, but I hadn't sat down and organized all of that. How do you keep track of all that stuff now? What's your method for keeping that running
Mm,
tally?
okay, I must say, most of the time, at least when I talk at conferences, it's easy because they're simply on my calendar, and I know when I gave a talk there. I can even use Sessionize because most of the talks that I give at conferences go through Sessionize anyway,
Mhm.
so I have them all listed there. I do try to keep up with simple all the contributions in the MVP portal site, but I must say, if it's quite busy, and then I do tend to forget sometimes. I've had a month where I had to give 4 talks about 4 different topics, at different locations in Europe. Uh, those were not submitted the same month as I gave those talks, because I was simply rushing with my normal job and giving the talks, and there was no time to enter them in the portal. But that would be really my advice: keep them up to date, especially if you do some work where you work together with Microsoft or you provide feedback on the products. Do record it directly in the portal, because you are going to forget it. And especially if you're up for renewal, and those contributions will count, and they may be the thing that will convince the people that will actually assess you that you will get another year as being an MVP.
I know that before I was an MVP, I mean, I started doing like because the purpose of tracking all of my content and the speaking engagements, I was sharing that with my internal team and the sales folks, and it had more to do with like, hey, I was the chief evangelist for the company. I was over in the marketing team, and it was, hey, I want to map these to our products to different problem areas. So if you're having a conversation with the client, if you've got it mapped in your CRM, and we were a Salesforce company, unfortunately, we were on Dynamics. But if you remember, like 15 years ago, Dynamics had lots of problems, and so anyway. But we mapped all of the content. So when they're having a customer call, they could say, "Oh, hey, Christian wrote an article on this topic," or they'd reach out and be like, "Hey, we keep hearing this issue, this concern with SharePoint or whatever. Like, do you have any content around that?" I'm like, "No, but let me write something, for you and put it out there and get community feedback." But it's what I liked about the early days of the MVP program. So I've been 14 years now. Was it was a Word doc. You didn't have to go through that frustrating the online
Yeah.
form to add the contributions. But and then that's what got me started was building that list, and then I would push it out on the blog because I'm like, why would I not make this public? All the content's already public.
Yeah.
So here's everything I published. And so I still do that. But for the site, for the MVPs, if you know what we're talking about, if you go to mvp.microsoft.com and you look up either Johan or I, you can see our profiles. There's all the contributions lists. I update mine twice, maybe 3 times a year. So I leave the bulk of it to the end of the cycle when we have to get ready for renewal and you have to enter it all into the system. But yeah. What's your primary contribution type, or what's your topic that you're most passionate about right now?
Okay, the things that I'm most passionate about, I do quite some things about .NET MAUI, because I really love that product. I come from Xamarin Forms background as well, and yeah, from the beginning, I was just as most Xamarin Form developers, not quite that impressed with MAUI, but it really grew and it really became a very mature product, and I really love it. And so that's what I do. I do quite some things around Azure, but mostly around building software on Azure. So how do you work with Azure functions, static web apps, things like that. I love Blazor. So
Mhm.
most of the time I'm mostly a backend developer and with some things around the front end, but they're not mostly focused around how do you build a great user interface.
Yeah.
Because I'm a backend developer, I don't know how to do that. But I can tell you how you can use certain design patterns and how you can structure your code so that it will be maintainable in the long run. And
Yeah.
then, if you are quite capable of drawing a very nice user interface on top of that, be my guest.
How'd you get started in tech? Like, what were you always kind of doing this and this side of things, or did you have a different background?
Um, no, I did start out in tech. I did an education, laboratory informatics. Um, back, I graduated in 1996,
Mhm.
but couldn't find a job in that field. So I simply entered and joined a regular software development company and made some job hops in between. And well, that's how my career started. So, yes, I did have a degree in tech, but not software engineering, software development. No, but more like how do you apply your software products within a laboratory environment.
Hmm.
So I learned a lot about developing software, also about building networks, for instance, because we had to be able to build our own network. And no,
Yeah.
that was not TCP IP, but Novell networks by the
Mhm.
people old enough to know what Novell is.
Yeah.
Uh, and we also needed to be able to even do our own analytics because, of course, you do need to analyze data. You do need to get your information from the devices
Yeah.
so that can do some calculations on it.
Yeah, that's so coming from that world right there. I worked for some smaller companies, but then went to work for EDS and then the phone company in California, and was working with the data warehouses. So I've done data warehouse consolidation. I owned the front end marketing tools and the back end data for the marketing organizations for the phone company, which are massive amounts of data, if you can imagine. But how little people understand of how difficult it was before the cloud to get all that data and to query that, find that. We were constantly slicing, dicing that data, doing joins, moving things across. Is this what you want? We did the whole data mart model where you had the smaller subsets of data and the different front end tools on that. And these kids these days, shake my fist at them, like don't understand how difficult that was. Like the early days of the internet as well, like put in a query, get up, go get the lunch, hopefully that whatever it was that you were downloading or pulling in or painting your screen is finished, and then you realize, oh, I queried the wrong thing or I left something out, and you have to
Yep,
kick it off again. But yeah, everything is so quick now.
yep.
It makes me appreciate it more.
Oh, definitely. I have been an educator as well for a few years at a local university. And I told the students as well, you know what? When I was back working with Visual C++, I had build times of an hour and a half. So, yes, you did look over your code to spot that semicolon that you don't miss it because you don't want to end up waiting more than an hour and that the compiler tells you, well, okay, you know what? You are missing a semicolon. You can do
Yeah,
this again from
yeah,
scratch.
yep. Good old days of doing all your work, doing things off of floppies, not even having a hard drive in your computer.
Yep.
But yeah, so I love
Yeah,
I
and
love
having
those, like that meme that goes around when people say it's like, here's my install decks from the disks from Windows 95. Is Do you remember this? Like, oh, please.
I must say that now I'm a bit sad about it, but I threw them all away years ago. Because I thought, well, okay, they were simply piled up in my working space, and I thought, well, okay, what am I going to do with it? I'm
Yeah,
not going to install Windows 95 and Windows 3.1 on any device anymore. So let's simply throw them away. But
yeah.
now I think, well, okay, I should have kept them.
It's funny, like I just came like I had a startup that I started in 97, sold it in 2001, but our first product release, I found the floppy. Like I don't have the ability to pop that in to read that file, but I found it, the physical floppy disk of
Yeah.
our first product release, which is kind of cool. This to look.
Definitely, and I don't know how about you, but I've been spent weeks at a row simply copying the new version onto a floppy disk set because we had to release a new version, and that would simply be 10 or 12 floppy disks that you send out to the customer.
Yeah,
So yeah, as a development team, you didn't only do the coding, but you also did the distribution, and not by simply pushing your changes to GitHub and waiting for the CI/CD build to package it. Now you have to package it on what we then had as build machine because you don't want to do it on your local machine. You
right.
still don't want to do it on your local machine. But then, after the build was ready and everything was tested, you could start simply juggling in floppy disks one at a time.
Yeah. No, man, I remember the day of moving over, was so happy to be able to distribute, to give that option of FTP, which is like, hey, we'll send it to you directly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Yeah. Anyway, so what else? What's kind of the community involvement now these days, and how are user groups in your part of the world?
Okay.
Have they recovered from COVID?
Um, yeah, I must say, if I look at the user groups, they have recovered. There are a lot of user groups in the Netherlands, at least.
Mhm.
Uh, well, pretty small focused, around 20, 25 people for a night, but they're scattered all around the country.
Yeah.
So they are still there, and a lot of them do actual physical meetups, which I find personally quite nice as well, simply to be able to speak to an audience.
Yeah.
Yes, I do live recordings as well, but you miss the interaction with the audience.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of things that are happening, and some companies organize them. There are some really meetups. There's a good one in the southern part of the Netherlands, .NET South, who is quite able to attract international speakers as well.
Hmm.
Even Scott Hanselman came, I think, about a year and a half ago. So they really are able to attract very good speakers.
I I just had a thought. I get your thoughts of this. Like, I think it would be very difficult to, I mean, certainly knowing like my path to becoming an MVP, to become an MVP if you're not doing some degree of in-person activities. And it doesn't have to be like international speaking. It can be regional, it can be local doing
Yeah.
things, but yeah, I just don't see if you're doing purely digital that you would be able to establish the relationships, to the connections to make that happen. I don't know, what do you think of that?
Well, it can happen. I met a fellow MVP at the MVP Summit who simply maintains 3 open source projects. And that's all he does. And that's fine, because if you were to put him in front of an audience, he would be quite miserable.
I know a couple people like that too, but they are rarer
They're
than
quite
common.
rare.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I think most MVPs start out with giving talks at local user groups and then eventually start presenting at international conferences. To be honest, I've had the hope to be able to present at one international conference this year.
Hmm.
Okay, I already had 3, and the year is halfway through, and I still have some on the go. But even when a local meetup group asks me, "Can you give a talk at our evening?" I show up, because I know that well, there are a lot of people who, once they really become international, they think, "Well, okay, I'm not going to do anything for the local user groups anymore."
Yeah.
But I think no, they deserve our attention as well. They deserve our love. They deserve our content as well. So it's not just for the large international conferences. No, if a user group comes to me and says, "Well, okay, we only have 15 people attending that night. Are you willing to come and give a talk about a certain topic?" Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
And that's the difficult part. How heavy does that weigh on your contributions towards the renewal of the MVP? Well, to be honest, then I think, okay, it may not be that you have a large reach, but who knows what those developers will do in the end. The
Yeah.
first conference that I talked at, uh, I attended as a regular attendee for years before I actually had the guts to simply step up and give a talk. So who knows that someone in that audience gets enthusiastic, gets motivated, simply to think, well, okay, I want to do that as well. And let's be honest, at least the two of us, we're not that young anymore. And it's
That
good
is true.
that we have some fresh MVPs entering as well, to simply have a very broad set.
Yeah.
One of the MVPs I'm most proud of, Angeli, is a former student of mine.
That's
Her
very
first
cool.
lesson,
Yeah.
when she got acquainted with ASP.NET, I'm to blame. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah. That it is a cool well, say going back to kind of like on this topic though, like no, I met a woman who so 2 years ago now became an MVP who had never presented in front of an audience, never blogged, didn't have a YouTube. I'm like, what do you do? And she answered questions on in forums and contributed to GitHub to some open source projects. That's it. I mean, like, I'm not like, not that that's it. Like, she wasn't doing all the things which, be honest, like it makes people fearful of, I've got to go speak at all these events and do things. Like, no, you don't have to. If you're uncomfortable with that, you don't. There's a lot of ways you can contribute.
Sure. And
And
there's a
so
lot
you
of
just
ways
have
you
to,
can contribute, but even if you are not that familiar with giving a talk and you think, well, okay, I would love to try it,
yeah,
but I'm a bit fearful of it, of actually doing it, reach out to another MVP.
yes,
Does a lot of talks, because most of the MVPs I know are quite willing to help you give your first talk. And then perhaps you do a duo presentation. Who
yeah,
cares?
yep,
But simply, and then you can make the decision, well, okay, I like to be on stage, or I really don't like it. And be honest, I think that goes for all the MVPs that give talks at conferences. You know what an artist feels before he or she enters the stage.
yeah. Some ways I feel like we've, with the whole content creator crowd, that we could pick up some of the lingo. The whole idea of doing collabs, there need to be more of those. Like, if you have an idea, if somebody came to me and be like, "Hey, Christian, I've got this idea. You did this stuff. I'd love to join forces and do something on this. In this way, if we could combine these things," I'd be like, I'd be all over it. Let's just make it work in the schedule. I would love to get more of those invitations. That's my plea out there to the audience. Is I'm happy
Definitely
to do that kind of stuff. But
fully agree with you. And you will only grow from it, the both of you.
yeah,
Or the 3 or 4 doesn't really matter, because what the good thing is, there are so many MVPs who are specialized in a certain topic.
yeah,
But for a bigger topic, you probably need the experience from multiple MVPs. So why don't you share that knowledge?
yeah,
Work together.
yep,
We're not competitors of each other. Sometimes it may feel like it, especially when you are on session eyes. Yes, I compete with other MVPs on giving talks, and yes, you get the uh, turning down is what you have to get used to if you actually put in calls, because a lot of conference will simply say, okay, you can't come. And yes, you have put a lot of time in it. And yeah, probably then another MVP can talk at that conference, but that's good.
yeah. Well, that's
Then I'm
that's the
not
thing too.
jealous or disappointed. No, then the other one gets a chance. And who knows how we can help each other in the future.
That's why it's always good too when you're submitting to a conference to give a variety of, because I mean, I do this almost every time. There's sessions that I'd love to give the president. It doesn't get selected, and they pick up another one that I've been doing for a long time, which I'm fine to do. I wouldn't have submitted it if I didn't want to speak on that topic. But I'm just like, why not this other one? Then when you finally see the agenda, I'm like, oh, there's 3 other sessions on that topic, and they likely submitted before me or whatever. It got good feedback, so they're repeating it at another location or whatever it is. And so I trust the organizers. I'm like, here are my wares, here are my topics. Let me know what you need, and I'm happy to go in and speak on any of these. So yeah, it's always it doesn't matter how long you've been in the space. Again, I've been, 15 years, almost 15 years. It'll be, so it's technically 14 and a half, because I became an MVP back when they used to do it quarterly. It became one in January of 2012. And there are topics that I love doing, but whatever it is that the organizers need, that people reach out and say, hey, could you do this session on this topic? Like, I'm like, hey, happy to do that.
Yeah,
Happy to go and assist. So I wish there were more invites from, again, doing collabs.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
in fact,
Yeah,
I'd invite you, except we're in very different spaces. But
yeah,
yeah,
definitely. But that's sometimes the cool part as well. And of course, if you're an MVP, you mostly meet other MVPs that are in your own subject domain.
yeah,
But that's what I love about being at the MVP summit. Of course, it's also talking to the Microsoft persons who actually built the products, attending the talks, is not my priority when I'm at the MVP summit.
Nope.
Meeting
Me neither.
people, communicating with
Correct.
them, that's what I love about being at the summit. And that's what I love actually spending a week at the Microsoft campus for,
Yep.
because I can always rewatch all that stuff anyway. And let's be honest, most of the things that we get told at the MVP summit under NDA are out in public a few months later at Build.
Or days or weeks, right.
Yeah,
No,
so
yeah, exactly. I do the same thing. I prioritize the in-person connections. It's so much more important because the technology, like you could get caught up. You could go talk to somebody who was in that session and be like, what did I miss? What do I need to know? Who do I need to follow up? What should I go and read? Um, and so, but that's true with conferences in general. Like like the keynotes are different. But I, generally don't go to a lot of sessions if I'm actively engaged in one-on-one conversations, meetings that are happening there in the expo hall, talking with partners, doing those kinds of things. So I just utilize events very differently than an attendee might. And it's not to say there's topics I'd love to go and sit down and see, but my priority are those face-to-face connections.
yeah. Yeah, and
So,
and if I don't have a face-to-face connection, then it's fine. Then I simply attend a talk, and sometimes it's from a fellow MVP that I know well. Or it is who, or he or she is giving the first talk at a certain
right.
conference, and I'll simply attending, not because I haven't heard that talk before or that I don't know enough about that subject, but simply to be a kind of a mentor, and having a friendly face in the audience sometimes helps if you have to present at your first international conference.
Yeah. Well, I did the other thing too is that like I have a topic. I was not given the last session I just did a month ago was in Seattle, and I had a couple sessions, but I saw that there were other. So again, a topic that was not selected, and I sat in part of two sessions on that topic, and I just like, am I missing something? What are they doing? And I realized that that some of the core information was the same, but it was just very different what they were communicating, what they were doing. For me, it validated, hey, I need to better position mine of why mine's different than what they presented. I think that my session would have fit in well with both of those other two on that topic. And they both had full rooms. I think it would have, so it made me go and kind of reassess and rewrite some of the abstract.
Yeah, yeah, but sometimes it's also good that, because then you don't really attend the session for the technical content, but simply to pick up ideas. How I present it in a different way?
Yeah.
I am, and I haven't perfected that, really not, but I really want to start experimenting with storytelling, for instance,
Yeah.
because storytelling works great to keep the attention of the audience, but
Well,
it's quite hard to get it right,
I'll
and
tell
it
you,
does take a
Johan,
lot of prep time.
we've got this whole conversation, have not talked about Copilot once. So good, bravo to us.
Yeah, definitely.
But But I mean, like I was like kind of jokingly saying when we're saying like you and I are on very different topics. Like you're talking .NET, I'm talking SharePoint and Teams. But you can actually leverage Copilot if you had like a technical article that you're presenting on, and I've got this article that's more of a business, a power user type topic, and you could actually go to Copilot and say, take these two presentations, create a new presentation that leverages from both that we could co-present on. What makes sense? It's amazing its ability to go in there, and we can even insert storytelling
Yeah,
where we could say, and we want to include in there a story about this, and we want to tell the two sides and the business and the technical together, like bring it all together. It's incredible what it is able to go and do and find connections there. So we might have to experiment with that and just do kind of a you know
well, I always like experimentation.
yeah. How are you going to learn if you don't crash and burn sometimes?
Definitely. But I must say, and I don't talk about Copilot. Well, yeah, I do, but not that often. But uh, all the sessions that I put in Sessionize are handwritten, because yes, of course, I do let them check and make sure that I get asked feedback. But 9 out of the 10 times, I simply ignore the feedback and think, well, okay, no, because the way then it's written, it's not me.
Yeah.
And I like it to be personal. And even if I write or read an abstract from a conference, 9 out of 10 times I can really determine, okay, this is Copilot or this is ChatGPT or any other AI. This is not made up by the original person
Right.
itself.
Yeah, I for the most part too. The one thing is like I've been called out a few times where I'm just like, excuse me, no, go back and look at my 21 years of blogging. Is my use of the M dash and my use of it? I realize that AI is over the top with the use of the M dash. But mine comes from learning about Emily Dickinson back in high school, and so and using that. So again, I used it for like the pause, the M dash, the the spacing of it's something that I think about as I write too. But I was creative writing was my minor, so I enjoy the writing process, but yeah, if you go back, just for the record, M dashes are kind of my thing and have been my thing for, wow, that goes back since 87, 80, no, wait, 86, 86. Yeah, 1986 is when I learned about Emily. So anyway, well, Johan, really appreciate your time. I know we went a little bit long here, but really appreciate getting to know you, and hopefully we'll see you at the summit this next spring.
I hope so. I hope I can get a ticket to actually attend physically in Seattle. I really loved that. So I hope
Register
to see
early.
a lot of fellow MVPs in Seattle again in March, I guess.
Yes, yes. We'll hope to see you there. We'll really appreciate your time. Have a great
You're
evening,
welcome.
the rest of the evening for you.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. You too.